Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Welcome to the South End Zone. It is time to recap the first ever 12-team playoff round one.
Hmm.
And Tyler, what a doozy. Man, were
Uh-huh. It
we
was something.
riveted and captivated by these matchups. Holy
If only that
cow.
were true. If only that were true.
Oh, man.
If only that were
It
true. And
was.
I'm sad. I'm sad and happy at the same time because it's like we had playoff college football on college campuses over the weekend.
Mhm.
We had fan bases traveling across the country or across the state in some circumstances
Yep.
to bear witness. There was touchdown, Jesus Christ. There was playoff football in front of touchdown Jesus. There was playoff football at the shoe. There
Yeah.
was playoff football in Austin,
In
and there was
Happy
playoff
Valley.
football in Happy Valley. There was a whiteout. James Franklin wore their alternate uniforms for a playoff game at home.
Yeah.
He wore
Yeah.
them in the most meaningful game played at Happy
Yeah.
Valley
Yeah.
probably
For real.
ever.
For real.
Like you had Ohio. We have a lot to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, to
Yeah, we
break
got.
down these four games, but it was nothing less than history. That's for sure. We had people complaining about this, that, and the other thing. People saying this. Lots of opinions flying around this weekend, Chad.
There,
That's for
there's
sure.
no place. There's no place like home for the holidays. Yesterday, I was standing in line at Kohl's trying to return something, and I met a woman who lives in Tennessee, and she was headed for the Rose Bowl parade if Tennessee had won, but
Oh,
they didn't get to go because they were going to have they had like a band member in the family or something,
oh,
and they were going to have to go play the Rose Bowl
oh,
parade,
wow.
the Tournament of
Oh,
Roses parade.
legitimately. Oh, wow.
And yeah, and they were like the whole family was going to go, but they were sitting there talking. They're like, "Yeah, if we win, but I don't think we're going to win," and all this stuff. So like the Tennessee fans, I think they were kind of the folks who went up there. Oh, God bless
Clearly.
them. I hope they had fun while they were up there, but it was not fun watching that game. But let's get into first of all. Let's kind of take a step back and breathe in. Like you said, we had playoff football, college playoff football. And while I don't know if it was jitters or what, the road teams just really like pissed down their legs early in those games
Road
and
dogs.
made it look a lot uglier than it actually was, than
Hmm.
it actually should have been. Um, I think Indiana, so we'll start with that one. Indiana actually played a better game than what it looked like they were capable of playing after you watch like a quarter and a half of that game.
Yeah.
And they made the score look a lot closer than it actually was. Notre Dame beat the brakes off of them, but then they
Yep.
they scored late to make it look little bit more respectable. Give it to Kurt Signetti; he's really good at that. Did it with Ohio State too.
Yep.
Scored a late touchdown to cut it to 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but so I want to talk about how like all right, so playing these home games and the atmosphere and like all of the anxiety and everything. 'Cause it's one thing playing a regular season game and you go on the road and we've seen it. Tennessee goes into Arkansas, loses. Alabama goes to
Hmm.
Oklahoma, loses. You had plenty of examples of this. Miami goes to Syracuse, loses in the Carrier Dome. They go to
Hmm.
Georgia Tech, they lose in Atlanta. Like all, these things happen
Yep.
throughout the regular season. So when you have like these high level matchups and these home games, and it's the first time ever, and I think there's a lot of this stuff that we can kind of say, okay, this is a data point, and it was bad. Like the teams that lost looked bad doing so.
Yep.
However, I don't think this is one of those examples where you say, like, see, this is why we shouldn't have a 12-team playoff
Right.
anyway.
It's not that.
It's definitely not that. So let's talk about this game because like Indiana actually like I think they were maybe kind of sort of in this game and they
They made
like
way
give
too
the
many
ball up at the
mistakes.
they give the ball up at the 2 yard line and boom. Next thing
They
you
made
know,
and they
Jeremiah
crazy.
Love takes it to the house.
And to be honest with you, I think it could have been worse because Notre Dame like shut down Jeremiah Love for like the majority
Yeah,
of that game to save
eight
him.
carries. He had
Yeah,
eight
they
carries.
shut him down like early.
Yeah.
They're like, you know what, we'll bag him
Hmm.
up and keep him for later. I'll tell you what, I'm not full honesty, I had not had the opportunity to watch a lot of Notre Dame football.
Hmm.
That defensive front is
Yeah.
impressive. And what's even
Hmm.
more impressive is their secondary. Now I know
I was going to say,
there was a lot of PI
yeah,
that they were,
that's what I was going
but
to say. Early
however, they
on,
had
they
guys
were letting Notre
locked
Dame
up.
get away. They were letting Notre Dame
Yeah.
get away with a lot. You're right.
But all in all, they had guys locked up. Like Rourke had
Mhm.
nowhere to go, and he's not that mobile of a quarterback. And when Indiana could not establish that run game that they had made their money on throughout the year, like it was a wrap before it even got really going. Like
Mhm.
Notre Dame kept them from doing anything they wanted to do pretty much at any point in the
Mhm.
game. It was still very cool having, the Indiana State Championship game, haven't played in a long time.
Mhm.
Indiana's most recent, bowl victory is still in the 90s.
Mhm.
I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was I don't know how to describe it. It's like tough because then this is like the first bullet in the chamber for the 12-team
Mhm.
playoff is stupid. Oh, why is Alabama
Right.
and people? And I feel like that only even Mr. Lane Kiffin himself was starting to fire off Twitter, getting Twitter fingers going, which
Mhm.
I think is ridiculous and soft and embarrassing. If you are a
Yeah.
college football coach, win the games, Lane.
Yeah,
Don't
and
lose to
let
Kentucky. Don't
let
lose
your
to Florida.
fans
Let the
and the
fans do that
pundits and do that
because
stuff.
you
But
wouldn't want
like,
your players doing that shit.
right,
Like
right.
you wouldn't want your players going out
I
and
don't
getting
know. He might. He might.
he might.
Like his
But like you
players.
are a grown ass adult man, coach of
Well,
a SEC football. Well, he is an adult. He is grown. He's an adult. He is, you know.
I know. I had to qualify because
No,
let's not stretch
but
definitions here. But
we'll
yeah,
we'll
no,
talk about Lane
it's a
because he only
bad
got
look. It's
worse.
definitely a bad look.
He only got worse. Like, and here's
Yeah.
what I have to say about that: the people who are, me and Chad are for for the playoff, and yes, these are blowouts. But to
Hmm.
say if we get to a point, or people are like, well, they should have had in Alabama and Ole Miss in anyway, and then it's like, well, then you're saying that Indiana and SMU seasons don't matter no matter what.
Right. No matter
What
what.
you're saying, unless you have a way to qualify
Hmm.
like losses against each other, like
Hmm.
metrically, or like three
Hmm.
losses is quite simply three losses
Yeah.
compared to one loss. Like those
Right.
numbers in a committee's mind are gonna
And
that adds up. Doesn't matter. Like
that's three losses. Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina had three losses, and none of them played in their conference championship game,
right. So they
which
had
is
nothing to
another
help them
opportunity
out.
to lose.
Right.
So like
Nothing to
they
help
could have
them
had
out.
four losses.
Right. If
So you can't,
SMU
even with SMU, you can't compare it because they lost one game before the championship. So
right. So that's what I mean. It's like you can only compare losses when you have equal amount, right? Like obviously, like a 3-loss Alabama would have been way the hell better than a 3-loss Indiana, but that's not what happened.
right.
That's just simply not what happened. And the bottom line is, don't go to Oklahoma and lose to a 6-6
No, but
team. Don't
yeah,
don't get beat by Kentucky, Florida, Kentucky.
agreed.
Just simply do not do that. And
Hmm.
there's you have conversations with younger kids that are trying to, it's like when you go off to college, what's the best way? It's like make you have to give them every reason to put you in. Like
Right.
you can't give them a reason to keep
Oh,
you out.
for admissions. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Or
Right.
you're trying to play. When you're trying to play, like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
like you could give make sure your coach has zero reason to not put you in the game. That sort of
Hmm.
thing. So
Hmm. Hmm.
give the committee zero reason to keep you out, and they won't. Simple.
Hmm.
Don't lose 3 games. And I honestly would have liked Alabama then to be in. I'm
Right.
like, well, for the SEC, screw them. Part of me doesn't want them in,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
knowing it would provide a better football game,
Yeah.
most likely,
Hmm.
you're kind of dealing with those two components together.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is, by the committee's criteria, and simply put, Indiana deserved it over
Right.
those 3-loss
Well,
teams.
yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna?
Yeah,
It's
because then you say the season doesn't matter.
if you're not gonna force teams to play a certain schedule where they have to play certain levels of teams, and you
Right,
get rid of all the no more Mercers, no more Western Michigan, no
right.
more Central Michigan, Central or East Carolina, like, and some of these teams aren't like bad teams,
Yeah,
but they're not at the level of like Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Michigan. You know what I mean? They're
yeah,
not up there. So there's got to be something. They're going to have to force some of these conferences to play cross conference games
And play each
where
other.
they do more of it. Or so what I'm with this is, okay, we never have this argument about like comparing. It may be with like seeding and everything, but in the basketball tournament, you can have a 12 loss team, a 7 loss team, and they're being compared and seeded against a 2 loss team that went 27-2.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you look at their schedule and their resume and you realize like this one team, all their wins are against teams that are in like the 200 to 300 range.
Which
And
they
then their
compare those
losses
wins. There's a
are
metric for them with those wins and
right.
losses.
They have those same metrics um, for the college football stuff. Like
Mhm.
it's still there. Like these metrics
Yeah.
exist where you have whether it's the FPI or the strength of record, all these different things, the
Yeah.
strength of schedule, which I still, they always say strength of schedule. I would love to see what the formula actually is for how they calculate strength of schedule,
Yeah.
because I have a way of calculating it that's very different from, you can't just look at the winning percentage of the teams that they played against, because who did those teams play?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you beat a bunch of a bunch of teams that went 10-0 against FCS schools. So your opponents have a 90 winning percentage. Well, that's not the a fair comparison. So I guess what I'm getting at is when you're looking at the basketball tournament and how they compare these teams, how they cross compare, there's first of all, there's way more games, and there's an understanding that when you have 68 teams in the field, that what you're doing is you're just making sure that you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I've compared it often to like trimming a brisket, trimming any kind of meat roast or anything like that. You have a bunch of fat. That fat can render and flavor the meat, but you don't want too much of it, and you don't want the hard stuff. You don't want like gristle and things like that are going to be unchewable, and they're not going to digest well or anything like that. So you trim. But what you don't do is you don't just trim so deep that you make it completely lean and take all the fat out. Because to do that, you would have to cut so much meat out that you're going to end up, first of all, you paid for this. So you're going to end up throwing a lot of money away. And second of all, you're throwing good meat away that you would like to eat. And some of that fat helps to flavor. And so that's what, when I look at the NCAA tournament in basketball, there's probably a lot of people who are like, there's no way Illinois Chicago deserves to be in this tournament. They gave us some of the best moments
Mm-hmm.
in tournament history.
Florida Gulf Coast.
Maryland, Baltimore County beating
Yeah.
Virginia in the first round as a
Yeah.
16 seed. It's one of those moments that every year you get to relive that moment when they replay those highlights. And I know football's different. Football is a lot more of a you match up, and a great team is going to dominate a bad team.
Yeah.
It's not like you can go 3 for 26 from three and get bounced in the first round by a team that goes
But
17 for 20.
the bottom line for a 12-team playoff is, where is it decided? Not in the polls, not in the
Right.
boardroom. Where is it decided? On the
On the
field.
field, right.
And that's
And
what matters the most.
no undefeated teams were left out of this tournament. So
Correct.
that's number one. So we've already won, because last year we left Florida State out of the tournament undefeated.
Yep.
So mark one off for the committee. They got that right. Okay. We didn't leave any undefeated teams
All
out of the
conference
tournament.
champions got to be a part of it.
So the teams that didn't win, like we talked about Alabama,
Yep.
Miami, South Carolina, Ole
Yep.
Miss in a 12-team playoff. Yes, I can make the case, and I'm about to, that they could win the national championship. All of them have talent
Mhm.
at certain positions that could go on a run. They could make a deep run. How about that? Maybe they
Yep.
couldn't. If you don't think they could win the national championship,
You win the
you
first
could
round.
argue that they could make a deep run. They could get to the
Yeah.
semis, maybe even to the final, right?
Yep.
Okay, so what I'm arguing is that the problem with what we saw in the first round is not that we let too many teams in. This is going to sound crazy, but it's that we didn't allow enough teams in, because we're still doing this thing where we're looking at teams that are in the same kind of realm of like, we can't tell is Indiana really good enough to win the whole thing? They only lost one game, and it was at Ohio State. They had some bad bounces, but then you look at who they beat, and it's like, well, they beat the brakes off of them though. So like, are they good? I don't know. SMU, same thing. Like they really, and they only lost to BYU, and so it's like, well, maybe they are really good. But if you allow Alabama, Miami, South Carolina, Ole Miss, that's 16-team playoff. And now those teams have to play each other in the first round. So now you have your top 8, which is the same top 8 that we had that are all still available. Look, these are the teams. The top 8 are all alive. Oregon's 1, Ohio State's 8, Arizona State's 4, Texas is 5. Boise State's 3, Penn State's 6, Georgia's 2, Notre Dame's 7. So the top 8 are still there. They would all still be sitting there waiting. And what you would have had instead is SMU, Indiana, Tennessee, and Clemson would have had to play Miami, Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. And then whoever earns the right after not pissing down their leg in that first round to play in the next round, now you have a real okay. Now it's that we. So what you do is in the first round, that's where you want to clear the BS out. And I think what they did is they tried to clear the BS out before the tournament started, and they got it wrong.
Yeah.
And we don't know. Like maybe they didn't get it wrong. Maybe Alabama would have gotten blown out too. Maybe Miami would have gotten blown out too. South Carolina, Ole Miss. I doubt it. Just from what I've seen, that how these teams play against great teams versus how they play against.
It's like we know how we feel about these teams and how they perform so far, but you cannot like the cold hard facts is their losses hurt them.
Exactly. And they should. They should. When if it's a 12-team playoff, those losses should cost you your opportunity. No, and I would never make the argument that all 4 of those teams deserve to be in, and the 4 teams that lost this weekend deserve to be out.
Exactly.
What I'm saying is they should all have been in, and they should have been playing each other, and then you let the results on that field decide who continues going. Now you get to, and I argue for a 24-team playoff, 8 byes, and then you have your round of 16. So that way, like what I was saying, you have those 8 teams are waiting, and then those other teams are playing each other, and you see who ends up playing each other. That's that way you get to that. If you're not in the top 25, you're not in, and I think everybody kind of like considers that, like if you're on the fringes of the top 25, you're not really a contender for this thing. Unlike basketball, where basketball you actually could make a run, because you get hot, at the right time, all that kind of stuff. Football's very different. It's a much more physical sport. There's a lot less of that big margin of error, like baseball and basketball. That's why they play 7-game series instead of just 1 game for their championship, right? So saying all that to say that the way that this thing, I think, becomes more beautiful is with more teams, and then we will have you're going to have some clunkers, but you're going to have some really good games too, and then you're going to set yourself up by letting these teams earn it on the way to the championship. You're going to have more better games at this level.
You'll never not have this. You'll never not have the games that happen this weekend, no matter what you do.
We had it when there was just 1 game.
Right. Like, you were almost guaranteed. Like the only real year you can really think of that they were both amazing was the year that we played Ohio State and TCU played Michigan. Because like the year that we played
both great games.
Oklahoma, there was a stinker. I think Alabama killed the other team they played. I think it was I forget who it was. But and
when we won it in 2019, we blew Oklahoma out 63-28. Justin Jefferson had 4 touchdowns in the first half.
Right, like things like that. Like when we us in Michigan, game wasn't too bad. We still killed them, honestly, but like it wasn't a bad game. And then Alabama killed Cincinnati. Like bottom line is you're never, because of just like you said, the athletes. There's always going to be like the cream rises to the top when, especially in football. Like the best players will shine at any point in time. That's what it kind of was the theme throughout this entire weekend. I mean, it started with Indiana, and then of course it went right into noon on Saturday.
So
Penn
let's
State,
get
and
into
that was
this.
a rocky start. Who knows? Like this was like
That's what I'm saying. Like
that was rocky.
SMU is like either Jennings could have run the ball and gotten the first down, and then
Yeah.
we don't know what happens with that
Or that guy
possession after
catches the
that.
ball.
Or if that guy, if well, he threw it behind him a little bit,
Yeah.
but if he catches it, it's a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's in the end zone. If that pass is
We're up
if it
7-0.
connects, it's a touch, and it's 7-0. And
Mm-hmm.
instead, it's like turnover on downs, punt, pick six, and then it's over. Like that
SMU
was
essentially
pretty much it.
gave Penn State enough time to get their legs under them.
Yes,
Because
yes,
SMU was going to take that early punch, and that makes a big difference when you're the road
yes.
team. The road dog is you have
Changes
to
the crowd.
draw blood early. Because
Mm-hmm.
once you give a team like Penn State, who is, I guess you would say, objectively better,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
more talented. Once you get them
Right.
time to like get their heads up and get their feet underneath them, it's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like they will, especially you deliver them 2 free touchdowns on top of that. Like
Right.
Jennings
Look,
was not bad this season, but he played
no,
terribly in Happy Valley.
but the thing is, he's a sophomore.
Right, he is young too.
Kevin Jennings is a sophomore playing on the road in a playoff game in Happy Valley, and I'm telling you that like if that first possession results in a touchdown,
Yep,
it's a whole different vibe for
because you're
him.
defeated. You're
But
defeated on the jump.
you could see how it started to just collapse in on him.
Yeah,
Like after the first pick six, it was like head and hands, but then they're only down 7-0, and they get back out into the field and they
and
I think
make
they
it
went
14.
they punted. They
Yeah.
punted it was a like a weird possession, but they ended up not and then they like got a fourth down stop on Penn State. James Franklin was trying to lose the game.
Yeah,
He was first of
it
all
was
he was
ugly
like
for a while.
run pass.
That's what
Like
I kept texting you. It's
throw the
James Franklin,
ball
so
throw
run,
the
run
ball on
fast.
3rd and 8. Throw the ball on 3rd and 8 and no other time.
Yep.
And then he goes for it on 4th down from like his own 21 or something. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell are you doing? Oh no, it
Bro,
was their own 29.
He chooses
4th and 1 from their own 29.
He chooses the weirdest times to be like, no, I'm ballsy. Like he chooses the weirdest times to try to prove that point, and all it proves is he's an idiot. That's all it proves.
Like, if you want to like, and don't even try to prove that. If you want to be a good coach, just let Drew Aller throw the ball on 1st down.
Right, throw it like literally
That's
was run
ballsy
pass
enough.
religiously. No, it's not even that. It's run, stare at Tyler Warren, throw the ball.
Right.
Like, I swear to God, like I literally like Warren motions like behind Aller to the side of the line, ball snapped, looks at him, throw it. Like it's like no, not to say that Aller did not get better as that game progressed.
Right.
My friend who's a Penn State fan, I didn't see this visual before, but now I can't he called him a Big Ben disciple. Like just the visual of all those people like at Aller's feet trying to hold him down, and he just like throws one out to the side, or like he's like the slowest fast man I've ever seen.
Yeah,
like, he is not. He's like quick but not fast. Like and like he'll get outside the pocket, and then he doesn't really go much farther than that. Big Ben disciple, Drew Aller. I like the comparison. I think it's like there's especially those like weird passes out of the pocket to the flat when the whole pocket's like on top of him. I mean, like you said though, Jennings had an opportunity to draw blood first, and that is massive. That's what happened with a lot of these games.
It was just a self-inflicted wound.
Right, exactly. He's like, oh, I fell on my sword.
Yeah, Drew Aller goes 13 for 22 for 127 yards, and you win the game 38-10. Like that's what we're talking about here. Is that and to your point, like you said it perfectly when you said they gave Penn State enough time for them to get their legs, and for James Franklin to not choke it away.
Right.
Like they let them get out ahead enough to where it was like James Franklin can't even screw this up.
Right. You gave him enough cushion to like not have an issue.
Yeah.
And then you listen, SMU wasn't a top 10 team, so Franklin was safe anyway. And so so it stands.
Right.
Like
the power of 11. Oh man, you gotta love it. The gematria numerology people are all over it.
Yeah, AG, what's up? Yeah,
that's right.
Like
that's right. So,
yeah,
you got to experience it. I mean, that's right in your backyard. What's
everybody
the vibe
I
now?
could possibly know was at that game. I swear to God, like my Snapchat, Instagram was just Beaver Stadium, tailgate in the stadium. We are Penn State. It's cool, man. Yeah. I mean, like they have like a solid path until they meet us if we beat Notre Dame. which
Yeah.
we'll talk about in our preview. One
Yeah.
game at a time, and I just love that in Kirby's like they interviewed Kirby during the Notre Dame Indiana game, and they were one booing him, and he's
Yeah.
like, "It's okay, guys. We're used to it."
Yeah.
And B, they started saying, "We want Georgia." I'm like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll see. But
Yeah.
this game, great for Happy Valley, great for Penn State, getting essentially James Franklin's biggest win in his career, even though it doesn't feel like one at the same time.
Mhm.
And we'll
Yeah.
see. They got to play Boise State, and once again, Boise State can take that punch first. If
Mhm.
JT rips one, they get the ball first, and he rips one early.
Yeah.
They
And
could be on their
look,
heels, and that's away from their home crowd too.
yeah.
Now we're getting into, we still
Mhm.
have 2 more games to talk about, but we're getting
Yeah.
into these neutral sites, and it's
It's
different.
sight. It's
Yeah.
different. Very different. Very
hmm
different. Yep. So let's
This
one
was
more
the game
home
with the
game
most spark. The
that
most
didn't
spark.
yeah, this was well, so it's kind of funny too. So like we talk about, when you're trying to decide who deserves to be in and who deserves to be out, we never talk about how we get these games completely wrong when we try to pick who's going to win and who's going to beat the spread and all this
I
stuff.
know.
And
All the
and
favorites
like
won and covered.
so like if we were asking Jeremiah about like what's the solution? What do we do? And I was thinking about it in the car when we were getting ready to do this show. I was on my way back over here, and I was like, you know what they should do is like what's his face, Stanford Steve is like 2-1 every week pretty much, like a lock for his picks. Find me the guy, like let's put all the prognosticators together, and at the end of the season we'll have a prognosticator contest, and whoever gets the most games right against the spread, you have to pick every game. Whoever gets the most games right with all college games taken into account against the spread gets to single-handedly, unilaterally pick the 12 teams who
There
are
you
playing.
go. Beautiful. I love
Because
that.
now you know who's good because you're able to predict outcomes of games.
Yeah.
But I don't want to hear people who get all the games wrong or who are under 500 picking games talk about how, oh, this team has no chance. Oh, all right. Well, then how come you picked uh, Clemson to beat the spread? I did. I think I deserve to get dinged for that. You did too. Yes, exactly. I definitely didn't think SMU was going to beat the spread against Penn State. Um, I did think Indiana was going to beat Notre Dame though. So
Yep.
like when we get into this stuff, like this is the one where we looked at it. We were like, this is the one. Clemson's live. This is a
Yep.
real game, and it turned out to be like the most real game
Of the
of the
weekend.
games.
Yeah, it's yeah, and and Texas, and it was the same thing. It's like these home teams were just dealing shots
Mm-hmm.
early
Early.
in all of these games. Like it's like bam, bam, they're up. And it was the same thing for Texas. Like they,
Wasn't this one
Wisner
21
got
nothing?
going early, and say it again.
Was this 21 nothing to
Oh,
start?
I'm sorry. It was actually 7-0. So Clemson actually drew first blood.
Oh, that's
I
right. Yeah,
lied.
and then you were talking
So
shit.
I was talking. Well, I wasn't necessarily talking. I tweeted it before. You got to
I
call your
know. That's
shot
me.
every now and
That's
then.
me.
It's not going to be fun if you don't. I tweeted
I
before
know.
the game. Clemson wins in Austin today. I'm willing to wear that on the chin if
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't, because they're most likely
Right.
not going to.
Right.
I'm totally willing to accept that. However, they go up 7-0 early, and then it's 7 apiece
Yeah.
in the first quarter. You're like, whoop, is it possible? And then
Yeah.
Texas immediately rips off 21 points in the second quarter, and Clemson only puts up 3. So it's in 21-10 going into the third quarter, excuse me. And then we're like, oh, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, yours is making mistakes now. Like they weren't in the first half. Like Wisner's were running all over the place, like 110 yards. Jaden Blue, 104. Like they were running all over the field. Like what's going to happen? And then you see, they cough it up. They do this. All of a sudden, Clemson scores, and then they turn over again. And then Clemson's threatening to make it a 7-point game, and they get stuffed in the goal line on 4th and 1. But there was at least there was a moment in that game where it's like, like if they could do this real quick, we scored 2 touchdowns in 5 minutes. Clemson had 17 minutes to make it a game. And they really tried.
Right.
And they, Club that gave it everything he had. I thought it was cool because apparently Clubman versus Ewers was a Texas high school state championship game at one point. Like so they are very familiar with each other. So that was really cool.
Right, right.
Um, and
Well,
I,
but what you said a minute ago about the goal line stand and that
yeah,
that was kind of a common theme too. If you look at so there was a little bit of it in the Indiana game where they had shots. They went for it. Signetti, put his balls out there and said, "Let's go for it."
mhm.
And when you don't get it, it tips things back in the other
It
direction.
does. You have to
And then
be,
and then SMU had a fourth down and one like on the 9 yard line or whatever, or the
yeah,
19 yard line, and they throw the ball into the end zone and it's just off the guy's fingertips. Otherwise, it's a touchdown.
hmm
And then you have this game, and then Tennessee had multiple chances in the red zone, and that's one of Ohio State's calling cards. Granted, okay, but I guess what I'm saying is that's why I started this episode off talking about how some of these games it looked worse than it actually was.
hmm
I don't think the disparity between the quality of the teams is as bad as the outcome of the games ended up looking. I think what you had is something very similar to what you had. You don't remember this because you're too young, but back in my day, young whippersnapper, the Super Bowl used to be trash.
oh,
Every year the Super Bowl was trash. It was just you just watched it for the commercials. It was like San Francisco beating Denver 55-10. Like the NFC Championship game was actually like a way more, and it was always the NFC was beating the piss out of the AFC for a, almost a couple of decades, and then it flipped the other way, and then because you had what was it? Buffalo lost like 4 Super Bowls in a row or something
they
like
did.
that. Or four, maybe not four in a
No,
row, but
four
they
and five.
lost
It was
four.
like with the quarterback, one that lost four
Yeah,
Super
Jim
Bowls.
Kelly. Yeah. So um, that doesn't mean that that team didn't deserve to be in the Super Bowl. It just means that what happens in some of those games when it's that high pressure type situation, a lot of things happen that are like a marble on a glass tabletop.
Yeah.
And it goes one way or it goes the other way really, really fast.
Yep.
And I've seen it happen so many times in Super Bowls where it'll be like 10-0, and then a team tries to do something and they're not like they take a shot because they're trying to create an advantage and they turn the ball over. It's a pick six or a sack fumble touchdown or something like
Like the
that.
dagger
Next,
comes in mid game instead of at the end.
exactly. But when the dagger comes, and it's just
Yes.
it's like, oh damn, we were right there, and then next thing
There's like a
you, and so
tipping
next
point.
thing you're looking up and you're down by 42 points. You're like, what the
Yeah,
hell
it's
happened
like
to
that
us?
crossroads. I know exactly what you're saying. It's like that crossroads where it's like, if we can keep this from getting away from us, we'll be okay.
Mhm.
But it's that
Right.
that flip, like, oh, we tried and we failed, and now we're down by even more. That is
Mhm.
just like
Well,
defeating
and then
for
you
some
start
teams
taking other risks
and being way more aggressive, and
and
then
being way
giving
more
yourself
aggressive, and
opportunity to turn the ball over more.
then you turn it over more, and so it's just
Yeah,
it's 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 like
it feeds itself.
yeah. Whereas in a regular season game, um, you might have one that ends up looking like this 38-24, and this had that feel of I felt like Clemson kept coming back and
It
giving
kept making
themselves a
it a
puncher's
game.
chance. So
Yeah. It's like you Texas kept thinking you were gonna get off the field on third down, and then boom, Klubnik would deliver one in the middle of the field, and they, would keep, moving down the field. Um, and then we have in the shoe, the, we thought. Listen, here's what I will say: we know that Nico has not been able to handle himself well on the road this year,
mhm.
but this is Ohio State playing to the potential that the roster holds. That's quite simply what this is. And it's Tennessee not being able to handle road games very well. You mix those together with, throwing it to some of the best receivers in all the country all the time. And you know what? You get this. This is what you get. That's all I really got to say. I'll be honest with you. Full disclosure, I wanted to stay up for the rest of this game. Was tired. I had to get up early this morning, so I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I didn't push it. How do you feel about this one, Chad?
Yeah, well, so I mean, we talked about it right before halftime. Um, I mean, because this game is another one where it's like, what the hell is going on with these teams on the road where they were not barking, the dogs
Road
were not
dogs.
barking,
They were
the
not at
dogs
all.
were the dogs were
Crying,
whimpering in the
whimpering.
corner,
Yeah.
pissing in their kennel.
Yeah.
And so anyway, what I was like, what's going on with these teams playing on the road that they can't get out of their own way at the beginning of these? They dig themselves this huge hole
And
at
the
the
home
beginning of these
crowd's on you.
games, and then they're still fighting their way back into it, sort of, And
Mhm.
this one was a perfect example where it's 21-3, and next thing you know, it's like Tennessee's going to get the ball to start the second half,
Yeah.
and it's a 4-point game. They have cut it to 21-17, and then they come out, they get the ball back, and it's 3-and-out. Dylan
Yeah.
Sampson's still hamstring is still tight, and so
Yeah.
they give the ball to Ohio State. Ohio State goes down and scores. They give the ball back to Ohio State. Ohio State goes down and scores, and it was just like boom. Next thing you know, a 21-17 game at halftime turns into 21-0 in the second
Yeah. It
half,
was 21
and
10 with a chance to make it something nice in the second half, and it just wasn't.
mhm. and and then you had. Oh no, that's what it was. It was 21-10. That's right.
21
And they
10.
and then if they had and then if they did something with their possession that's what it
Yep.
was. They scored late to make it 42-17. You're right. Because it was 42-10 at one point. But yeah, so it's an 11-point game with Tennessee getting the ball to start the second half. And so you're thinking, okay, well they get the ball, go down, score, they cut it to 4. And I guess I had already put that like out there where I was like, all right, it's gonna be 21-17.
Yep.
But it never was.
No.
But then like again, it's those times where they got into the red zone and then Ohio State held them, and it was a field goal one time, but a couple of times it was a turnover on downs,
Hmm.
and or a, turnover. Like that's it. Just you can't win like that.
No.
But it's not as though they just like completely got outmatched.
I
You could
think
see a path
offense
where
on defense, they kind of at certain points they did. Like they just could not contain the Ohio State receivers
oh,
at
the
points.
receivers, yeah. But in the first half, even they had some possessions where they were getting to Will Howard and they were
Hmm.
covering. They were doing enough in coverage, mixing up man and zone and doing their thing. But yeah, I mean Ohio State, like, so you go get a 5th-year starter quarterback in the portal from Kansas State. Tennessee starting a true sophomore who like got like one game last year in the bowl game.
Yeah, which like
Um,
I texted you last night. I was like, where do we think that Nico's ceiling is truly at? And it's just like us and Tennessee fans alike
Mhm.
just got to give him time.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what it's a thing. That's what that kid needs. I I think he'll have Tennessee being a contender again next year.
hmm
But I
Beat
mean,
beat Alabama at home.
yep,
Got
it's
his
his
team to the
road
playoff.
mentality that needs to. It's
Yeah.
really his road performances that he needs to work on because he lost to us, he
Hmm.
lost to Arkansas, and then had this game against Ohio State. That's like where he
Yeah,
fell short was his performances on the
on the
road
road.
and in pressure situations and in 4-down situations
Hmm.
specifically for him is where he falls short a lot. But I think
Hmm.
that's a lot of things they can fine tune. But Ohio State's looking like the most dangerous team in the country after this one. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I mean, certainly. Well, I mean, that's what it was supposed to be, right?
Right? It's supposed to be Ohio
That's
State, Oregon 3 times in a row. You
yeah.
know.
I mean, everything that I was told was that this is the number one team in the country start coming into the season. So now we have this to look forward to with what you talked about the Ohio State Buckeyes looking really, really dangerous, but now they've got that rematch, and it's a Rose Bowl. It's a
Which is
huge matchup.
a
It's going to be
perfect Rose
incredible.
Bowl, like a
Yes.
true Rose Bowl,
Hmm.
a Pac-12 versus Big Ten. Now the
Right.
Big 18 versus the Big 18. It's as glorious as it gets. I swear
Hmm.
to God, this is something that the Rose Bowl committee can only hope for is that their
Right.
bowl has the natural teams in it, and it's for a playoff game.
Yep. And then you guys got the Sugar Bowl with Notre
Running
Dame
it
in New
back from
Orleans.
1981, baby.
Oh, listen, the dogs are barking. Um, are you coming down? Are the dogs barking enough for you to come to New Orleans
Ugh,
and
probably
make a
not.
visit?
I wish, but no.
Yeah. All
That would
right.
be
Well, I mean,
nice. I wish, but no.
yeah.
That would be nice. Everything's expensive. I
Right. Penn
wish.
State taking on Boise in the Fiesta Bowl in Tempe, and then
Hmm.
Texas and Arizona State. That's going to be That's going to be a big one too. So
Yep.
they took your spot, man.
I know.
They're supposed to let you guys go to Atlanta, right?
I know. Well, that was the whole thing. They said they didn't want to. They didn't want to. That was the whole thing. They didn't want to
I
create
know,
any
I was
natural
joking.
home. I know.
Yeah,
I wish.
right.
Listen,
Yeah.
Mercedes Benz is our second stadium, man. That's where we like to play sometimes every now and then.
Mhm.
That's where the Natty is this year, though. So,
But I look, it's going to be tough for me not to get excited about these games too
oh,
because
dude, these are. I mean,
I
we'll
really think Boise
preview
State,
them.
Penn State, and Texas, Arizona State are going to be better than people think.
I agree with that. I agree with
We're
that.
going to get into it. We're going to have our preview in a few days. Look for us right before the first of the year. Well, before the 31st, I guess, because
Yes,
that's when
before
the first game.
31st.
We'll do it on the 29th or 30th. So look forward to that because we're gonna break those games down. We won't give
Mm-hmm.
you too much of that right now, but it's
Nope.
just I'm excited that we got playoff football.
Me too.
I'm not going to listen to the people talking about this that it was yes, the games were not as fun to watch as I would have liked, but just the fact that we got to see it to start is
Yep.
great. Like I'll say this, every year when March Madness comes around, I still enjoy the hell out of it even if the first day it's all chalk.
Mm-hmm.
It's still fun to watch.
Oh, it's amazing.
I still used to love like skipping school or like
Mm-hmm.
I brought a Sony Watchman TV,
Yep.
cut a book out and stuck the TV in the book.
I love it.
So my friends and I could watch games during our breaks at school. We just really go find a spot in the hallway and like sit there and watch watch games. But yeah, it's we have it in college football now. I think it's going to keep expanding. We'll
I think
see. We'll see what they do. They're
they're
going to
going to
tweak
keep fine
something next
tuning
year.
it. They're going to keep
Yeah,
fine tuning it. I don't think that we have this exact format next year.
absolutely not.
There's going to
Well,
be something different.
the 12 team format with the home sites and the bowls and the championship, that kind of rotation,
Maybe
that
their
structure might
qualification
still be the
criteria.
same.
The criteria.
It's going to be the qualification criteria that changes,
Yeah, that's what's going to change.
and the seeding. They may do something different with the conference
Yep.
champions.
They're going to tweak it as the years go
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
This is not the final format of college football by a long shot.
yeah. But think of it like this though. Think of what if we actually had a 2014 playoff and you got just like straight seeding 1 through
Which
24 and
right,
it
and
wasn't
then
this automatic
you
conference
get you get
championship stuff.
I mean, well, even then you just get auto bids like as a
Yeah,
conference champion,
you
and
get
then you
auto
just get
bids but you don't get auto
yeah, right,
buys, you
exactly.
know.
I think what a lot of people say where they messed up was giving the conference champs the auto buys and instead of just auto bids.
Mhm.
Like auto bids to the tournament is fine. You can because then
Right,
you can seed it wherever you want. Then you're not
right,
forced. They're not forcing
right.
seating anywhere. Then you still get
And that
your
created a problem too, honestly. I feel bad
yes,
for the committee because that was kind of forced in. They're like,
yeah,
crap. Like I guess yes, we're going to put Boise State and Arizona State there, and then what do we do with Notre Dame and Ohio State and
yeah.
Penn State and
Mhm.
and then and then they had the thing with the conference tournament or the conference
Yep.
champions and
The
not moving
losers.
people down or up
Yeah.
or anything like that based on that, and it creates this really weird format where like I was saying like it made it to where they had no choice but to put Indiana and SMU in
Right. Exactly.
and
That's
leave
like
some
quite
other
literally what
good
happened.
teams out.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm just saying, like, let them all in, and then you we know the teams that are legit is about in that 16 to 20 range.
Yes.
And so what I tend to do, that's why I use the brisket trimming analogy, is I'm willing to let those other four that I don't think have a legit shot in
Mhm.
on purpose, just so that I don't leave this out again. I
Yep.
don't want this left out. Much as I'm happy that Alabama didn't
Yeah.
make it,
Right. Right.
I still think it's not good for the quality of the product that you're trying to put out there.
Hmm.
And it's not good for like really determining who the real champion is, because to me a real champion should have to go through all those teams and
For
including
sure.
these.
Absolutely. 100%. Because like
And I
these are all
think to
teams that could
say
have
we
done it.
need to have fewer teams is a
The
cop out.
opposite. Right.
It's a cop out.
The one team
So
college playoff.
yeah, right. Let's just vote Princeton again.
Yep. Yale. National team.
Yale, Princeton, Alabama,
Notre Dame. Notre Dame.
Michigan,
Notre Dame. Notre
Ohio
Dame.
State. What did they? Who went undefeated? Give them the national championship. Who did they play? Doesn't
Oh, but
matter.
hey, guys,
Give it
be,
to
be
them.
nice, be nice, be nice. They want to defeat it too. You have to share. You have to share.
Right. Or sometimes it would be like somebody went undefeated and they gave it to the team that lost to them anyway. It's like,
Yeah,
what?
it's
What are
like,
you
hey, the
doing?
national championship is now 1 versus 7, guys. 1 versus 7. All right, here we go.
No, there's a year where like Notre Dame beat Florida State or lost to Florida State, something, and then like I think it was I think Notre Dame lost to Florida State and Notre Dame still won the national championship. And
That's what I mean. How could we? How could
Florida State
people?
had one loss.
And it's my generation who only knows BCS football and
Yeah,
beyond that does
right.
not realize that people just got voted national champions. Because I was born the first year of BCS football, so like there is
Mm-hmm.
nothing, nothing after that. So that's where
Yeah,
we're at. But it was, it's all gonna get better from here, boys.
that's
I'm
right. That's
hopeful.
right. It can only get better from here.
It
Right?
has to, right?
We've started down the path. We started down the path of getting better, and now we're just going to keep. It's going to keep on going
Mhm.
because I. It was not a great first run, but I think it's better than not having that run in the first place.
Exactly.
So
You
that's
got
the
to start
point.
somewhere.
That's right. That's right. All right, everybody. We appreciate you coming through. Thank you for coming into the South End Zone with us. And Merry Christmas. I hope you all enjoy it. Enjoy all your fun with your family and everything else. Even you people in Alabama, College Station,
Yep.
Miami. We love y'all too. We
Merry
wish you a
Christmas
Merry
to
Christmas
all.
to all and to all a good night. Like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to comment. And we'll see y'all next time. Peace.